Every thesis needs to work with external references, with literature. Literature is needed to support your claim, to show what others have done in the field, and also put your own perspective in place. And to do this, you need to reference this other literature. Fortunately, LaTeX and the Hagenberg Thesis environment, they have a great and actually simple way of dealing with literature. There is one important file where all the literature goes. It's called hgb-references.bib. You might want to change the name, or you can change the name if you want to, but the standard name is hgb-references.bib. And as you can see, it's pre-filled with a lot of literature already. You might say, but I don't need this in my thesis. Why would I want to have it here? And you're absolutely right. It might look very crowded in this file, but the good thing is almost every type of literature that you might need in your own thesis is already in here. So it's easy for you to pick one of these predefined entries and just adapt them to all those papers and books and articles that you want to add for your own thesis. So maybe just leave them in for now, because you will see that even though there are a lot of entries already in this file, so if I scroll down here, there's like over 500 lines of code, so to speak. Not all of them will be used in your document. So if you have a look at my document, which uses the HGB references bib file, and by the way, you can find this in your main file. And if you look at the very top, it says bibliography HGB references. This is where the bibliography file is included. So if you change the name of your file, you should also update the reference here. But since you see that the file is included, and if I scroll down here in the example document, you see that in my references section, I have only 2 of these entries that are actually showing up. One is this paper here by Drake and others, and one is this about a so-called Reliquienschrein in German. And you might ask, why are there just 2 of these showing up here, even though this file is full of different references? And this is because even though the file has all the bibliography information about all these papers and books and so on and so forth, only 2 of them are actually referenced in the document. One is referenced here in the chapter literature text, or tech, yeah, it's a very complicated name. You can see here, that's the Drake paper here. And the other one is referenced in one of the appendices that you find here in the back. I think it's A or B or something. I need to find it. No, it's not here. There it is. There is the second reference that is being cited. So this is why only 2 of those actually appear in here. So how do I go on about if I want to add literature to my document? I'm going to go back to the state-of-the-art chapter where everything has been added, and let's say I want to add a book, and let's start with a book that is already listed in the HGB references bib file. So I'm going to open this one, and let's have a look. I'm going to scroll up to, let's keep the very one on the bottom here. Let's take this book here. It's a book by Jesse Schell. It's called The Art of Game Design. And what you can see here is a typical literature entry. The first thing every entry has is the so-called entry type. It starts with an @ and then defines what kind of literature item do we have here. So @book gives you a book. @in proceedings gives you a so-called conference paper, something that is in the proceedings of a conference. If I scroll up a little bit here, I can see here's something in the field of audio. Here is an online source. Here we have a standard document. Here is a manual. We have a journal article. We do have software. So there's a lot of different things here. Let's start out with the book, and let's see what we have here. There is obviously a field for an author. There is a field for a title, and also a field for a subtitle. So those are the things you will find with most entries. But before that, there was even another thing I didn't mention yet, and it's this. It's the so-called citation key. in order to be able to cite this piece of literature here later on in your text, you need to give it a unique name. In this case, it's the name of the author, Schell, Jesse Schell, and the year the book was published. It was 2019. But you could use any other string, unique string as well. So if you would want to call it, let's say, game design book, then that's fine as well. This key doesn't show up anywhere. It's just for reference purposes. But, and I'm going to undo this, the author name and the year, it usually works quite well, and you see this quite often. So we have Jesse Schell's book, The Art of Game Design. The author name, it is always added by the first name, the last name, and followed by a comma and the first name. Should you have multiple authors, and I'm going just to add an author here, even though they're not on the book, I would use the keyword and then add the last name, a comma, and the first name. So that will be my second author. If I have a third author, I do the same. And another, comma, one. So this would be a book with 3 authors, and separates another author, and there's always last name, comma, first name. Should you have multiple first names, then you would write it like here, first name, middle name. So that's the middle name that goes to this last name. Okay. The title is obviously a very important piece of information, and it's almost in any kind of literature source, there's always a title. The subtitle might be optional. If a book has one, then you can add it. It could also be added in the title field, but it's clearer to add it in its own field if it has one. Publisher is important because the publisher might be different. Certain books might be published with different publishers. So make sure to add the right one here. Date gives you the date it's been published. And you have a multitude of possibilities here. You can either just add the year, or you can even make it more precise. So if you say the book was published 2019, then just add it like this. But if you know it was published in January 2019, you would add it like this. And if you know it was January 21st, for example, then you can even add the day. So you can be as precise as you need to be. For books, usually the year is fine, but to be more precise actually never hurts. Edition gives you the edition of the book. So this one's the 3rd edition, so a 3 is added here. Only do this if there are multiple editions. If it's the first, you don't need to specify the edition. If there isn't a second one. If there are 2 editions and you deliberately chosen the first edition, then please add it. The location is the location of the publisher, because sometimes publishers have different locations and have printed books in Europe and in the USA, so it might be a good idea to add that as well. And if you have a so-called DOI, a digital object identifier, so it's a unique identifier to identify, in this case, this book, add it here because it is being converted to a hyperlink in your references list, so the book can, in this case, be found at its original location. It's usually the website of the publisher. And then there's this field lang ID, so it's the language ID that just tells LaTeX, hey, this is an English book, because the title is English. So if LaTeX needs to do some hyphenation here in the references section, it knows that it needs to do English hyphenation in this case. So make sure to specify the language of this piece of literature correctly, so that the hyphenation can be done correctly. So now you see we have this book, and I changed a little bit about it. I'm going to maybe change it back. Well, let's keep it like that and then change it back later on so you can see how that plays out. The question is, how do I reference it? And it's pretty easy. As long as it's in here. And you saw I changed stuff and LaTeX did recompile things, but the references list never updated because I added the book, but I never referenced it. So what I need to do is I need to go in my document, let's say in the state of the art section, and I need to add a cite command so that the book in this case is referenced. All I'm going to do is see more in, and I'm going to write cite, And then I'm going to write shell 2019 because that was the key that I choose or I have chosen for the book. And I'm going to add a colon here, a period here, and then I'm going to recompile the document. And now, after I'm done here, the book should show up in my references list. And there it is. Now you see we have an entry number 2. The online source became number 3. It's being pushed back because online sources are always behind the regular literature entries. And now here's Jesse Schell, first name, middle name, last name, and one another, The Art of Game Design. Yeah, and you can see here is the date. We have the January 21st, 2019. There's the DOI as a clickable link, and it's been cited on page number 5. And if I go back here to my HGB references bib, and if I'm going to look, oops, sorry, it's the wrong one here. And if I'm going to correct it now, so I'm going to remove those authors that don't belong here, let's say like this. And I'm going to save it, and it's recompiling. Then you will see that the entry is being updated. The number 2 obviously stays. And I'm also going to revert the date back to 2019 like it was. And then you will see it's not January 21, 2019. It's just 2019. So you can see that the citation is getting updated. And the good thing is, now that we've cited it once, it is there. Should I choose to cite it somewhere else? Let's say I'm going to use my introduction chapter and I'm going to write something like, I want to reference cite shell 2019. And I'm going to do that in my first chapter. Then the document is being updated and you will see that there is another citation listed here. It's not only cited on page number 5, but it will also be cited on page 1 and on page 5. So we have it in this document multiple times. And the good thing is you don't need to worry about the numbers. The numbers, they get assigned in terms of author names. So Shell comes after Drake in the alphabet. This is why Shell has number 2 and Drake has number 1. And should another author emerge with an earlier letter in the alphabet, then everything gets pushed back. And that's all you need to know. Concerning books, it's always a good idea to add something like page numbers to your references. So let's say I not only want to cite The Art of Game Design as a whole, but I want to say, okay, I've got this information from, let's say, page 22. Then I can just add square brackets here, and I can add the number 22 here, because that's obviously what you want to do here. And if I go up to my document where I did the citation, then you will see more in number 2, page 22. I don't even need to add the P letter here. LaTeX does that automatically. And the cool thing is, if I have something like this, 22 to 24, let's say like this, this spans over multiple pages, for example, then it's even changed to a PP 22 to 24 with the correct EM dash in here. So this is a nice addition, but you can always, so it's mostly used for page numbers, but you could also add something like this. You could also say chapter 5, for example. If you want to reference to chapter 5, this is also possible. Then you would have chapter 5, for example. So anything is possible to write in there, but handling pages is something of a specialty here. For longer publications, it makes sense to add the page numbers in order to have the reader not look through a whole book of 800 pages. Okay, a few other things. The citation command can do a few nice other things. Let's say I do not only want to cite Jesse Schell, but I also want to add, let's say, a book from Burger and Birch in 2022. Let's take this one. I can add multiple citation keys in one cite command. And what it does here, I removed the optional chapter specification here. But what you can see here is that obviously the number for Jesse Schell will change because Burger comes before and then the alphabet. And if I go back to my references section, I will see that Burger now has number 1 and Jesse Schell has number 3. And even though I quoted it or I cited it here the other way around, LaTeX starts to correct the orders and add those things in the correct order. And if I would cite Drake as well, because we already had this paper in our list, and I think it's number 2 now, then I would get something like this. 1, 2, 3. So there is even a range that's being printed out here. So the citation features of LaTeX, they are quite sophisticated, and there's even a few other things that you could still use that I will not mention here, but have a look at the tutorial document if you need any specialties in terms of citing special types of literature, for example. It's all in the tutorial document. There is also an example for every entry type in your bib file. So if you're wondering, how do I cite it? What kind of fields and keys do I need to add? Please refer to the tutorial document. Everything's in there and everything's explained in big detail. And as I said, the HGB references bib file, it is full of entries. Just keep them in there, or maybe make a copy out of it and use this as a reference whenever you need a special entry type. Just copy the whole thing. If you need a patent, for example, copy this whole block, change the information and use it, change the citation key the way you need it or you want it, and then you have your perfect literature entry. And referencing literature isn't actually that hard. The tutorial document gives a good explanation, and the whole template document gives you all the examples you need to get started right away.